Today we just want to go through a couple of things. Want to talk to you about the PRT online that the MERP has developed, and I'll talk about that, and after that we'll pause for some discussion and some questions, followed by Paul Crawford, who will talk about the new round of monitoring visits, and then by Paul Tyndall-Biscoe, who's going to talk about project completion reporting. And so today is really an opportunity to present what we're doing in terms of the PRT online and to discuss the monitoring visit methodology and project completion reporting, and to get your inputs through the discussion. So starting off with the PRT online, just a little bit of background. Every year after finalising the annual reporting process, we review the PRT to identify any opportunities for improvement. For example, last year we introduced dashboards to help you review project progress, and this year we've added more fund-wide data charts to these dashboards. This year we also looked at opportunities to give you better access to your PRT data and other information of relevance to you and your projects, and hence the PRT online, which we're going to discuss. So just a little bit of background on the PRT. We first designed this in 2012, and we chose Microsoft Excel as the tool. We determined it at the time to be, if you like, the best practicable technology that would work in low bandwidth locations where a number of our projects are located. So in effect, the PRT, the Excel version, is an offline form. So this, the PRT online does not necessarily replace the PRT Excel version. You can still submit reports using Excel, and we'll talk a bit more about this, but there will also be the option to enter your reports directly online. There are pros and cons to both options, and we'll discuss those today. So what is the PRT online? It's an online database. It's fed by the PRT Excel version. It's your PRT data. It provides access to your dashboards, and it provides access to key reports, including M&E notes and monitoring visit reports and the like. And it also has links to the fund's website and social media sites. To access the PRT online, you can use the link I emailed to everyone. The username and the password are exactly the same as in the PLT, and who else can access? All of the fund management team can access the PRT online, so that's the fund management facility, the MERP and WSH. We can see all of your data, but you can only see your own data. You can't see other people's data, and it's the same with the reports. You can only see your own reports. For example, you can't see somebody else's monitoring visit reports. And it's important to note that we're using a CSO level login. So if Plan logs in, then Plan Malawi can see data from Plan Pakistan, Indonesia and Vietnam, for example. So we'll have a talk about how appropriate or not that is. We've included the dashboards. They're embedded in the application, and these are developed using Microsoft Power Business Intelligence. These dashboards are also available from the PRT Excel. It includes financial data, and some of you may have concerns about that being available to your project teams. We can talk about that either today or offline. And it also includes access to fund-wide data. So one of the advantages of an online version is it includes all of your reports since project startup. So you can easily track the history for any deliverable, expected change, impact, key performance indicator or key performance question. So you can call up the one of interest and you can see what was reported through the life of the fund. Can I add a new progress report online? Technically yes, but we haven't enabled that. We need to discuss the pros and cons of that. There are still concerns that this is an online system. It might be slow in some remote locations, and we need to consider that before providing online data entry access. It includes a number of reports, including the country reports that we prepare every year, and these are made available to desks and posts, for example, as well as the M&E notes. And as I mentioned earlier, it also includes reports specific to your projects, like the monitoring visit reports. So that's just a very quick overview, just to give you a sense of what it's about. Everybody should have received the link. If you hadn't, let me know. And I'll just sort of throw it open for any questions and discussion. Keen to hear your thoughts on this new initiative. John Kelleher, I think I can see your hand raised.
Okay, never shy to put my hand up. One observation, because I have had to play around, and one question. The question being, is this linked into DFAT's Smarty Grants process? Because that has its challenges. And the observation is, having had a rummage around, it seems perfectly functional, and it's good to be able to have all of those reports and those real final versions that you guys have in one place. And the only thing that was slightly glitchy was the variations button, which throws out all variations that have been made in the project, which is a bit different to when you're looking at the history against a particular item, which is specific to that item. If there was a way of making the variations specific to the item you're looking at as well, that would bring a level of consistency, which would be helpful. But otherwise, seems perfectly usable. No real issues around having it all available online. Not sure though if it operates like Smarty Grants, whether it will be particularly better than filling out the spreadsheet.
Thank you, John, and thank you for the feedback as well. It is entirely separate to Smarty Grants, and for those of you who aren't aware, DFAT, particularly ANCP, are using an off-the-shelf package called Smarty Grants. It's focused on grants management, and it has some capability to customize. It does not have sufficient customization to allow us to adapt all of the system to the PRT, whilst maintaining the capability to either upload data from the existing PRT using Excel and or via online. It simply doesn't have that functionality. So this is a custom application. It's built in Microsoft Access, and it's a web application. It's called a Microsoft Web App. In terms of time to develop, it's been relatively efficient, probably around about 10 days or so. So if you're trying to get a sense of, is this sort of technology applicable to other applications within your organisation, you can see what it does, and that gives you a sense of how long it takes to develop. Thanks for the point on the variations. Yeah, that's a bit tricky. And we'll have another look at it, but the challenge is that the online version is a relational database, and you can do what you're requesting, call up specifically the variation for that deliverable expected change, as long as you've got some unique identifier. The data is coming from Excel, and Excel does not provide unique identifiers, but I can have another look at it sort of based on perhaps using your using the reference number that's put in against every deliverable expected change and impact. You okay with that response, Mark? John, anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, that's great, thanks.
Thanks, John. Mark Harper, how are you? Tired? Did you have a question, Mark?
No, I didn't have a question. I actually couldn't log in. I don't know the password and username. I couldn't get into it, so I'm not sure what the problem is.
Okay, I'll have a look at that as soon as we finish.
I think Naomi's got her hand up, Bruce.
Okay.
Go ahead, Naomi.
Hi. I wonder whether we can work on the report online and possibly keep the report at a draft level without sharing it with the others when two people logging in from two different ends working on the draft, and then keeping it private until it's ready to share with others. Is that a possibility, or do you see us separately drafting the report and then kind of uploading it into the online version? How would that work?
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. At the moment, you can draft the report in Excel using the current PRT, and then you can submit that and we can upload it. If you wanted to work online and enter the data directly online, at the moment, everybody who has your login can see what's being drafted. The fund management team, fund management facility, WSH and the MERP, cannot see your report until in the online version, if you're entering online, until you press the submit button. So it remains invisible until you submit it. And is that sort of what you're thinking about?
Yes, because I was wondering whether two or more individuals can work on the draft from different ends, just on the online, without using an Excel version, and then publish it when it's ready to share, which you confirmed, so which is great.
Okay, thank you.
And Deb seemed to have a question as well.
Oh, I just have a very simple question following up on access. I wasn't able to get onto the site either, and didn't get as far as using. I've got our username and password, but the site wouldn't accept me. So shall I follow up separately?
Yeah, that's
okay.
I'll check out your username and password. I have tested them all, and but I'll have another look at it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what we're thinking at the moment is we can make the system available for online data entry, but it is a new system, and there are areas where your projects are working that don't have great internet access. We would need to make sure that they can, once we resolve these login problems, that the internet speed is actually fast enough for them to drive the system. So this is up for discussion, but our thinking at the moment is that for this next report, for the January report, that we would continue submitting the PRT using the Excel version. And then after that we could look at the option of, once everybody's had a chance to look at the system, get a sense of how it works, and we can then look at the option of opening it up for online entry. Any thoughts on that? Okay, so when you're having a look at the system, there are some pros and cons to sort of consider. In terms of the PRT XL version, the pros are all teams are familiar with it. It's easy to do things like, you know, annotate it with comments, which people do a lot, and different shadings to represent different things. It's quite flexible. Some of you share it on a network, and that system seems to work well for you, and some of you also link to other worksheets, and it works offline, of course. So they're the pros. The cons is some people find it a bit clunky, zooming in and out because of the size of the worksheet can be a little bit clumsy. The PRT online, the pros are all reports are in one place. It's form-based data entry, and so you can, for example, in the deliverables form, you'll see the title of the data entry field, and it might be baseline ... the ellipsis. You click on that, and that expands the form, and so it's actually easier for data entry in that sense. And you can view the history for deliverables, expected changes, impacts, KPIs, etc. The downside is that it doesn't have that flexibility you have with Excel. It's a bit more rigid in that regard. So there's some of the things to consider when deciding, you know, in future which way to go. Any other questions? Comments?
Bruce, is it worth just mentioning that that even when we introduce the PRT online, the Excel option will still be available if people prefer that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so you always get the benefit of the online version. It's always there. The data that you send in via Excel ends up in the online version, and so you can continue with the Excel version. But if you find the online version more convenient, you can use that. There's one catch. It's Hotel California, as Paul Crawford said. Once you go to the online version, start completing reports using the online version, you can check out, but you can never leave Hotel California, because that means we'd have to somehow get your data back from the online version back into Excel, which is of course possible, but not particularly convenient. So that's another option to consider.
The other thing was about the knowledge and learning products, Bruce. I'm not sure if you've had any further thoughts on how to link the database to knowledge and learning products. Obviously they're being sent in now as separate documents, but I'm not sure if there's a way to link them or not.
Thanks, Bronwyn. There are three options. We keep doing as we are, and that system is working. We're able to receive the documents. Some of you share documents via Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever, and we can continue with that. We also have the option that with the online version that we can store documents using the SharePoint aspect of the online database, or we can provide a link to a Dropbox web page, and that link is accessible via the online version. So there are ways that we can make sort of uploading documents more convenient for everybody, but at the same time we also have to look at, well, how we've been uploading those documents in the past and how they've been stored. It would be a big job to bring them across to the online version, the history, I mean. So that's a consideration as well.
Thanks, Bruce.
John, have you got your hand up?
I do, yes, thanks. Your Hotel California reference prompted something in my mind, and kind of link back to the question that was asked earlier on around kind of drafting in the online system. Does that mean that there's a save button so that we can log in, do some stuff, exit, and then come back in subsequently?
Yeah, that's right. So when you make changes to any record, whether it's a deliverable, expected change, etc., it's saved automatically, and it prompts you if you haven't saved it. So it's ongoing in that sense. One of the things that I thought might be a bit challenging is to keep a track of what you've updated and what you haven't. And so we've included an extra field there, John. You might have noticed when you're looking at the progress report, it just says done, status, in progress or done. And but saving records, coming back to, leaving and coming back is absolutely fine. Naomi, do you have your hand up? Naomi, are you there? Okay.
Bruce, looking at the time, shall we move to the next section?
We have
Sure.
It might be.
Hello?
Oh, sorry, you are there.
Oh, sorry about that. Look, just a quick question in the same vein about tracking changes within the online version. Is that an option if we've got multiple people reviewing each other as well?
Thanks. No, it's not. There's no way to sort of track changes like you would in, say, Excel or Word. That's a limitation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that feedback and those questions. Let's move on to the monitoring visits, and Paul Crawford, are you there?
Yes, thanks Bruce, and hello everyone. So I'll just spend a few quick minutes just going over the thinking around the second round of monitoring visits. So as you will recall, we've visited almost all of the projects in the fund. The two in Bangladesh we didn't quite get to because of security issues that cancelled 2 attempts to get there, but between the three of us we managed to visit all projects other than those two. And the focus during the first half of the fund was for those visits was on I guess helping us as a MERP and on behalf of the fund management team to get to a deeper understanding of what each project was doing and how it was interacting with and responding to the context within which those projects are situated. And so that was really about trying to get beyond just the operational plans and the progress reports that we received, and through seeing the work in the field and engaging with yourselves and your teams and your various stakeholders to really understand a little more about the theory of change, or the specifics of the fund's theory of change as each of your teams is interpreting it and implementing it. And then of course our role was to try and assimilate all of that information and feed back the performance of the fund as a whole to DFAT and more broadly to government and other stakeholders. And of course, as part of our role where we could, to provide a sounding board for each of the project teams and to make suggestions around how those projects might be supported or improved moving forward. So that was very much the focus of the first round of trips. Now during the second phase, we've given some thought and had quite a lot of consultation with members of the fund, but particularly with WSH, with DFAT, And we can discuss now the focus of the second round of monitoring visits that will happen between now and the end of the fund. Bruce, are you going to move the slides? Yeah, okay, thanks. So the focus moving forward for the visits, the monitoring visits, will be around trying to understand how successful the various approaches that the different CSOs are using. And so understanding or looking at the evidence that you're collecting around what's working and what's not working so well and why. And in particular, this is around looking at not just the success of the various approaches in the different contexts, but trying to assess the likelihood of sustainability of the various WASH approaches that have been adopted. In this regard, and we'll talk to this a little more in a moment, but within each monitoring visit, we've developed a methodology that we'll be using to workshop with each team your views on how the various change agents are responding to the support that you're investing in them, and how that's being borne out in the expected changes that you're reporting. And the point of all of that is to open a discussion with each CSO around the implications of these reflections for the sustainability and exit plans. Now you recall that right at the start, at the inception of the fund, part of the operational plans included some first thoughts around what you would do to shore up the sustainability of the projects and how you would sensitively transition at the end of the project to maximise the likelihood of sustainability. And so those were sort of, you know, they feel like quite a long time ago, those sustainability and exit plans. And so part of our focus during the second round of visits is to revisit those plans and particularly in the light of evidence you've collected around the performance of the change agents, and I guess open up a discussion around how the sustainability and exit plans might be refined or improved in order to position the projects well by the end of the fund. Thanks, Bruce. So in terms of how the visits will take place, generally pretty similar to how you would have experienced them during the first half of the fund. Depending on where the projects are located, we'd spend up to 5 days in each country. You'll be visited by only one MERP member at a time, but in some cases where we're approved to do so, Bronwyn might join with us in some visits. As per last time, we would be led by each CSO as to the itinerary and what's the most appropriate, what are the most appropriate places to visit and people to meet, and that of course is informed by the terms of reference which you should have all received. During each visit we would request at least one full day in which we could engage in quite a focused and productive way with the project teams, and in that, as with the last round of visits, we'd be looking for some sort of succinct overview of how you think the project is tracking, the things you've learned, the progress and achievements, but also the challenges. And then, as I mentioned before, we would then engage in a workshop process whereby we review the evidence that you've collected around the expected changes, and in particular how you see the performance of the various change agents in response to the work that you've done. As I've said, we've developed a methodology and also a tool that can help with that. We're still kind of refining that to some extent, but many of you would be familiar with the strategy mapping tool that the Paul TB developed and has been rolled out around all of the learning events. It's obviously a different subject matter, but the tool or the approach that we've taken in that is similar to what we're developing to assess changes in the performance of the change agents. So essentially the tool will lead you through a process of responding to certain questions and then generate a chart which then becomes a point for reflection and discussion. So that's something we'll be able to supply and talk to more in coming months. But it will be a key feature of the day of discussions and workshop with each project team when we're in country. as per the last round of visits, we'd of course like, where possible and appropriate, for you to facilitate some opportunities for us to also meet and discuss with your key change agents, and where possible to meet or to visit target populations and see the actual impact that's emerging on the ground in terms of water, sanitation, hygiene, gender equality, and so forth. We always reach out to DFAT posts, and we encourage DFAT posts to be involved to the extent that is appropriate for them. In countries where WASH is a strong focus, they tend to be quite engaged, in other countries less so, but we always make that invitation an open invitation to DFAT, and so how that is borne out in each visit is a little bit of a case-by-case situation. And of course, we, from our standpoint, it's strongly encouraged for the WASH program managers to participate, to join with us in the visit. It's, as you'll recall, we take a developmental evaluation approach, and so where this is conducted in a joint fashion, there's obviously no surprises then in the findings and the subsequent report, and we find that the discussions with having everyone present tend to be pretty fruitful. So again, as with the last round, we'll be encouraging, where possible, the project managers to join, program managers to join with us. So there has been a terms of reference. It's now been approved and circulated. There's some more detail in addition to what I've just spoken to, and would of course welcome any questions or discussion. Now, Bronwyn or Bruce, on my screen I don't seem to see any hands or anything fancy. I've got quite a basic screen in front of me, so
thanks, Paul.
I think Andrew, do you want to go next? Andrew's got his hand up. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul, for the your great presentation there. Would you expect our partner from Australia to be part of the monitoring visit?
Thanks, Andrew. If by partner you mean like a strategic partner, for example, I think in your case you work with the
CBM.
CBM, yep.
Yep.
And I guess from our standpoint, where they're a key player and heavily involved in the work on the ground, particularly, as I say, with the focus on change agents, where you make a judgment that involving them in the discussions with us would be particularly fruitful, then we'd certainly encourage it. It's obviously a bit of a case-by-case basis. Many of the CSO partners have those strategic partner organisations, but they are involved in the projects to a greater or lesser extent. So I guess what I'm saying is there's no simple one-size-fits-all answer I can give, but the guidance would be the extent that your partner is really working with you to affect the performance of change agents in quite a direct way, then it's likely that it would be beneficial for them to accompany us in the visit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrew. Did you have something else?
Yeah, sorry. It's just about the in PNG, for instance, we work very closely with the communities there. Would you expect some sort of documentation or of processes or guidelines to view as part of your, when you're checking on how the change agents have improved their performance or otherwise?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Perhaps I'll just get you to clarify what you might mean. But the documentation that we normally rely on most heavily as we prepare for these visits is the information that you would have already supplied. So that would be your most recent progress reports, your original operational plan, and then various knowledge and learning products that you've generated as well. We sometimes also look more broadly at DFAT and sort of relevant development partner documents as well. But perhaps you're referring to something particular that.
It was more from the WASH committees, that they have some documentation that you'd like to view. Is it?
Can I just maybe jump in here? Because this kind of goes to the completion reporting, which is the next section. But my feeling is that when we're looking at the sustainability of the changes or the expected changes, the more grounded in an evidence base they are, the better. So if you've been working with committees and you are trying to demonstrate that those committees are functioning in a more sustainable way, then any sort of evidence base you've got to back that up will only help the situation or help our assessment.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. John.
Thanks, Paul. The one-day session with the delivery team, are you saying that is exclusively with the delivery team and you're not expecting any change agents in country to be part of that discussion?
That's correct, John. It's similar to what most of you have facilitated with us or for us in the past. We envisage it being essentially an in-house chat where you brief us on developments up to and beyond the most recent progress report that we would have cited, and we have sort of an open sort of back and forth chat around how you feel that the various aspects are going and what you've learned and some of the challenges and achievements that are there. And then we would then go on to this new this new tool or this new method we've developed that triggers, we hope, some reflection around your experience and your assessment of the performance of the change agent. So I guess the value for us at that point is sort of a pretty free and frank discussion around the successes and challenges of the project vis-a-vis the change agents that you're engaging with. So yeah, at this point we see it as very much an in-house discussion with the delivery team.
But also with follow-up meetings with the particular change agents.
That's right, thanks Bruce. So it's not that we see the whole trip as being focused internally. That's just for that session, usually on the first day, but again we're led by you as to how to structure the itinerary. We're just simply flagging that we would like up to a day with the delivery team, and yeah, that would include the discussion with the change agents.
Okay, I understand that the opportunity will be there for conversations with change agents on other days. I do think that those conversations are in a quite different context than a workshopping around a series of questions in that change agent assessment tool. And I don't know, I'm not sure of the degree to which the two will triangulate, but in any case I understand the rationale. Second question might be around, since some of the projects are going to be finishing effectively at the end of the current financial year, if visits are happening as they are for us in March, April and June, what's the expectation around how sustainability and exit plans are then amended in light of the reports which will come out usually a month after the visits?
Yeah, that's a good question, John. And of course, some of this is will fall victim to where particular visits fall in the sort of remaining life of the fund. And so, yeah, the opportunity for amending and refining a sustainability and exit plan will obviously diminish as we, approach the end of the fund. I guess. Broadly speaking, we're giving it this focus, and so the fact of that focus we hope will encourage folks to reflect on those sustainability and exit plans in any case. And the workshop process is, as we say, predominantly a self-reflection tool. It's very much in the spirit of the strategy mapping that Paul's led at the learning events. It's throwing up some questions that we hope will trigger some useful discussion and reflection, and to the extent that you're able to, and it's it's feasible to refine sustainability and exit plans moving forward, then we'd be sort of looking to see that. But as usual, we have to overlay all of this with a pretty pragmatic lens.
I mean, it's worth pointing out too that like everything, it's a two-way process. So as well as being a structured self-reflection tool, it also does allow us to sort of assess the sustainability of the projects from a common framework, so that we can then kind of look across the whole fund at the end of our round of monitoring visits.
Okay, Georgia.
It's actually Luan. I would like to have one very minor question in relation to the use of the findings of the final MERP. I think it is very good in terms of reference. They're very clear, and I really like the idea of sustainability and exit plan discussion with the counterparts, or I mean with the partner or change agent. However, I just wondering how would the value of this in relation to the design of the new initiative by DFAT, that is the Water for Women. Because the timing of on the MERP, the last trip, would be happening towards later 2017 or move on 2018, when I understand DFAT aiming to have the third phase of CSO up and running in the next financial year.
Yeah, thanks, Luan. I mean, these are obviously related but quite discrete and separate programs. So this this process that we're undertaking is firmly focused on projects within this phase of the CS Wash Fund. Now, it's now official that there's a new phase that's being developed, but it's like there's no guarantees that any of us, whether it be on the fund management team side or any of the CSO partners, will be involved in that new phase. And so this process is firmly focused on what we're learning and the achievements of this current phase of the fund.
Okay.
Just another point on that. The midterm review is what sort of informs and influences the design of the new fund, Water for Women, but that's very much focused on the sort of arrangements, design aspects of that fund. I guess what we learned through the monitoring visits will help influence how individual projects go about their designs in the new fund and how they're implemented. And you're quite right, the timing doesn't quite work, but would still inform implementation, I think, the lessons learned.
Okay. Thank you.
Andrew.
Yeah, Bruce, just with the DFAT posts, do you want them, what part of it, like a debrief at the end of the visit workshop, or are you just going to like see them on the way out and just like debrief with them for an hour or so? Or how did you want to, you know, meet with them? What are you thinking?
Paul, would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay. We encourage posts to engage in the monitoring visits, and to you to engage with the posts during the monitoring visits and involve them, invite them. But at the end of the day, the extent to which they're involved is their decision. So at a very minimum, if we would expect to have to certainly encourage a meeting with posts at the end of each visit if they're unable to participate in the visit. But some posts, and this will vary on, from trip to trip, might like to be involved in, say, a final day workshop, which we commonly have, and when we formulate our recommendations. So, Andrew, I guess it depends. It's a case-by-case basis, whatever the engagement of the post is in the particular country we're visiting.
No worries, yeah. Yeah, look, I just got back on the weekend from PNG, and we're just trying to get a meeting with them on the way out, but yeah, they just sort of felt that because this is a Canberra managed fund, that they weren't that interested.
Yeah, that's a pretty common challenge, Andrew. It's
yeah.
This is unique from DFAT standpoint. Most programming, aid programming, is channeled and is planned and administered by posts. And so this fund is one of only a few things across the whole aid portfolio which is centrally managed from Canberra. And so people at post tend to be pretty busy, and their sort of main job is focused on stuff they have to administer from post. And so sometimes it is quite hard to get the attention and engagement from those stakeholders, but nevertheless we're required to at least offer it, where all of us have to reach out to posts as we're able to. And it's just the reality that they'll take or leave that based on the resources that they have available and their interest. Now, the level of interest is mostly around how prominent WASH is within their country strategy, what's called the Aid Investment Plan. And so in countries or regions where WASH is pretty strong, so for example in Southern Africa, what we find is you get pretty strong engagement from posts. They even like to participate in the actual field work of the monitoring visits. In other places there's a little bit of interest in the work of CSOs generally, if not in WASH, and so in those places we might be asked for at least a debrief at the end of the visit. We might pop into the embassy and have a chat for an hour or so, or sometimes a discussion before and after the visit. And then in other cases, in other scenarios, posts that have perhaps less engagement with CSOs and very little interest in WASH, then what we see is that it is pretty hard to engage with those people, those stakeholders.
Right. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, I think we better move along, and I'd like to hand over to Paul Tyndale-Biscoe, who's going to talk about project completion reporting. Thanks, Paul TB.
Okay, thanks, Bruce, and hello everyone again. So this last section...
Can I hear Bruce in the background?
Just one. Back in click. Yeah, so there's not a lot to present here, but I guess it's really just to say that, Bruce, do you want to click the next slide? Yeah. Just to talk about how the process for how the final reports will be completed, and then just a little bit on what they'll look like. So as you can see on the screen there, the Group 1 projects, their contracts end at the end of October next year, and so their final report will be due at the end of November. And for the Group 2 projects, the end of June 2018, and the final PRT due a month later. I guess the main point to make here is that there's not going to be a separate reporting template or report. That the final completion report will essentially just be your final PRT, but it will be enhanced somewhat. So there'll be no additional report, but we'll be looking for some actual information rather than expected information, so actual beneficiaries in the PRT description tab, so the actual numbers of people that have benefited from the project. We'll be paying a bit more attention to the KPQs, the key performance questions. and there are going to be 13 mandatory ones, which every project will have to respond to, in addition to the ones that you've been responding to or providing information on in your regular PRTs. So some of those will overlap, obviously, but there may be some extra ones that you'll have to respond to that you haven't been responding to through your normal 6-monthly reporting cycle. The other point to make here is that that we really want you to draw on the evidence base from your M&E systems. We don't want sort of motherhood or vague statements in these the responses to the KPQs. We really do want them to be grounded in a strong evidence base, and that goes for the deliverables, expected changes, and impacts. I think the KPQs that we're proposing to be included was emailed around, and so if there are any questions around there, there's essentially 4 new ones that have been added into the list that's already in the PRT. Bruce, is there another slide, or is that essentially that covers it? I think that pretty well covers what the reporting requirements will be. Obviously, there'll be a bit of work in doing that, and when we encourage you to provide as much detail as possible, because this will be the final report on which that will be used to sort of make the final report to DFAT. So I'll open it up to any questions and discussion now about that. And again, I can't see anything that's happening on the main screen. So Bruce or Bronwyn, if
yeah, Mark Harper, you've got your hand up.
Hi Paul, thanks for that. A question just about the timing of the final report. I mean, according to how quickly our money is going down, we're expecting to hand the final report in August. Is that fine with you if we submit the report 2 months earlier than the deadline?
Might handle that question to you, Bruce. Unfortunately, Amanda's not here. I'm not sure what the contractual implications of that would be.
In terms of the reporting, that's fine. 31st of the end of November is the absolute deadline. I guess you get brownie points for getting it in early, Mark. I don't see any concerns, but I will talk to Amanda when she's back from leave, and because I think you need to also submit a final acquittal, which would be due around about the same time, yeah?
Doesn't mean we still do.
So can I just ask, for the Group 1 projects, we still submit a annual report on the 31st of July and then an additional one in October based on the mid-year framework, or do we skip the 31st of July one and just submit it, the final annual report in October?
Yeah, you can skip the, I'm pretty sure that's right, isn't it, Bruce? You can skip the one at the end of July and focus on the final one a couple of months later.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, we're not about increasing reporting burdens. There will be one report, so the Group 1 projects will not be required to submit their annual report, completion report, until the end of November.
All right. So you'll get the mid-year in January, end of January, and then the last report. Okay, November.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. One thing I should mention about the approach we use to identify the KPQs to be included is that we looked at very closely at DFAT's reporting requirements, and there's a template. It's called a final A quality check, and then essentially we worked backwards and looked at where the data will come from to answer those questions, and basically they're all in the existing KPQs. we're only adding a small number of additional KPQs to cover off on DFAT's requirements, and those KPQs also address the evaluative questions that the MERP would need to, the MERP are concerned about as well. John Kelleher.
Thanks, Bruce. A comment and a question. The brownie point piece that you said about handing reports in early, just for Mark's information, we've had conversations with Amanda, and it's certainly not as clear as you're suggesting there, Bruce. The attitude that DFAT have as to conclusion is ambivalent at best. And we've had some pushback to our proposition to do exactly the same as Mark was saying, for very much the same reasons, and a fairly clear preference expressed by DFAT that we continue to operate to the end of the contract. So Mark, you may want to follow that up with Amanda. And the second point is very good that the MERP is keen on additional reporting, not necessarily the case for the acquittals, and our information is that we're expected to do the usual mid-year and annual acquittal and a final acquittal as well. So that would be something that we would suggest people double check also with Amanda. And the question, Paul TB suggested that there were 4 additional questions on the sheet that I've got. I can see 3 of them. Can you tell me what the 4th one is?
We just added it this morning, John. No, only joking. There are 3 at this stage, but there may be additional questions. One thing we need to have a look at is, are we covering off well enough on lessons learned? Are there enough opportunities in the reporting template for you to provide that sort of information? Is addressing lessons learned, for example, within the KPQs the most sensible way of approaching that? With the end of contract, I'm not suggesting that you stop work before the end of the contract, and I know DFAT are pretty keen to make sure you continue to the end of the contract, but in terms of submitting a completion report before the end of the contract, that is not unusual. In fact, on a lot of DFAT projects, completion reports are submitted before contract end, so there's time for a little bit of toing or throwing if necessary. But we'll most certainly talk to Amanda and Gerard and Robin and make sure we're all on the same page in terms of whether or not reports can be submitted earlier.
And yes, sorry John, 3 new questions, not 4. I was just checking to see if you're awake.
Well, you proved that I am, so that's good.
Are there any other questions about the completion reporting at this stage? There's a big silence out there.
Are you going to do anything additional with that? Are you going to create a sort of fund-wide completion report or something with all of our final reports? Or yeah, what's the MERP going to do with our final reports?
That's a good question. I don't think we'll be going through the same process we went to at midterm with the synthesis reports. But yeah, I'm not sure whether DFAT will ask us to compile some final report. Bruce, do you have a...
Sure. At this stage, we're not resourced to the M&E notes, the synthesis reports did take quite a few resources to prepare, and the thinking at this stage is that we will do a synthesis of each project, and then we'll also synthesize the findings from the monitoring visits, and then we'll have an end of fund workshop that would involve all of the FMT, and then something we need to discuss further, and some of the CSOs. It may not be possible for everyone to attend, and the focus of that workshop is lessons learned. What can we take forward into not so much the design of the next fund, that's already done, but into implementation that people can learn from and apply to the implementation of their projects. So that's the thinking at this stage. The other opportunity is the flare, and we're still discussing how we could best utilise that to, to discuss and prepare lessons learned.
The other thing, Bruce, if I can add, is normal practice for an investment of this scale for DFAT is to prepare what's called an AQC final. So each year DFAT reports to itself on its own, on each initiative, each investment, and has to prepare an aid quality check, an AQC. And at the end of that investment, there's an AQC final, which is sort of a little bit more of a wrap-up report. And so we're often asked to support. It's a DFAT report. It's an internal assessment, but we're often asked to support the compilation of that data, that report, and we would of course draw on all this data to be able to tell a story about the fund as a whole.
Cool. Okay, thanks for the update.
Are there any more questions or points that people would like to raise? Okay, well, Kate, please.
Hi there,
Stuart.
can you hear me?
Yeah, is Stuart with you?
Stuart's been stuck in another meeting, so it's just me, I'm afraid.
Okay.
It's actually quite a straightforward question. It's really just going back to the third agenda point. It's just about the MERP visit timings. I know that Bangladesh have said that October would be better in terms of, from their perspective, in terms of security. And I'm just wondering, because there's an election coming up in December, so they felt that October might make more sense from that perspective. And I'm just wondering how much flexibility you might have with the schedule for Bangladesh in particular. Nepal in November is no problem.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the heads up on that, Kate. We've only indicated a month, so it's an indicative timing, and we'll discuss further with you what's going to be actually more appropriate. So if October is the better option, then we'll work towards that. And
okay,
in the
that's great, thanks.
Yeah. So in the schedule we circulated, where you see a month, that is entirely indicative. Where you see the dates in that column, then we've already had the discussions, and we're sort of locking in the timing.
All right, thanks for that.
Thanks, Kate.
Hi Bruce, it's Bronwyn. I wonder if I could add a couple of things.
Sure.
Thanks for those presentations. There were a couple of points, I guess, that link in a bit to my area of work. So the issue that you raised about post, Andrew, I think the midterm review that was done found that there probably needs to be more effort, including within DFAT, to engage with post. So I think DFAT is very keen for you to keep trying to engage with post, particularly if there are opportunities for them to, I don't know, go to some launch or opening or something like that. They're quite attuned to public diplomacy at the moment, and I think you would have heard, those of you who are involved in the Knowledge and Learning Advisory Group, that the postcards from the field are very popular within DFAT, so encourage you as program managers to keep using those, and they often will ask DFAT posts to put them up on their Facebook or whatever social media platform they have. So there's that kind of way of engaging with them as well as the monitoring visits. The other thing was that hopefully you will have seen that the synthesis report focusing on public and public-private spheres of sanitation. It's finished. We've just announced it or put out an e-blast today about that. So if you're looking for some Christmas or summer reading, for those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, it's a good read. Juliet and I and Paul put that together based on the discussions and the work that's going on in Southeast Asia, particularly around sanitation and financing. And there's 2 learning briefs if you want the short versions as well. I don't think there was anything else. That's it. More like a public some announcements. The other thing with the flare, since we've got you all and it's a rare event, a number of you are on the Knowledge and Learning Advisory Group, and they've agreed to become the committee for the Fund Learning and Reflection event, which will be in August next year. So hopefully that message got through to you as program managers, but if that person is suitable, great. If you want someone else on the committee, just let me know. Thanks. And we'll be meeting probably early Feb next meeting. And the discussion's still going on about the topics, and some of those questions that were raised today about fund-wide information we'll be discussing. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bronwyn. Unless there are any more questions or points to be raised, I think we can probably wrap up. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today, and thanks again to Bronwyn and Amy for hosting, and to wish you all the very best for the festive season, and looking forward to working with you all again in 2017. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I should just, before everyone logs off, we have recorded this as well, so if you want any of your other staff to see the presentations or hear the discussion, the recording will be uploaded to the internal part of the website. Well, that's our plan. And yes, have a great festive season, everybody.
Yes, ditto from me.
And me.
And can I just, Bruce and Paul, a little aside, could we have a chat afterwards just about those CSOs that couldn't attend today?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. See you later. All the best for
See
Christmas.
you.
Thank you. Bye.